Okay, well, I think I will get started with this. I was going to share my take on our Paint This Challenge photo. And um, thank you for watching. And also, thank you for anyone who watches the replay. That will also be fantastic. Okay, so this photo was I thought it was really pretty. The flowers were really pretty. And part of what caught my eye about it was this background of blurriness, and I was thinking I haven't done a demo of I haven't done a demo of wet and wet, and you can get a nice wet and wet. This would be a nice wet and wet background, so I'm going to start there and see how far we get. Okay, I decided I wanted a smaller painting, so I taped off part of my page here, and I'm going to start with this really big brush. Do you have to work today, Cheryl, or are you off, or? I'm gonna wet this paint. I want to really, I want to start with water, but at the same time I want it to be slightly tinted. So I'm just going to make really lightly tinted green. Pretty much this background is mostly green with a little bit of purples. And of course I could use any colors I wanted, but I'll start with this green, and I'm just going to fully wet this paper with this big juicy brush so I can do a wet and wet wash. Now you have to wet these more than once usually, because what will happen is it'll absorb the water kind of unevenly. So you kind of just wet it and re-wet it and kind of watch it to see how it's looking. And then I kind of go back and forth to kind of make that an even kind of wash. This one is slightly green, like I said, but now I'm just going to drop in some color. Working from home. Yeah. I had notification pop up on here. I'm like, oh, yeah. All right, so I'm going to drop in some greens. Now, when you're doing wet and wet, something to remember is that it is going to dry quite a bit lighter even than if you're just doing a regular watercolor wash. I'm going to just drop in pretty much color kind of all over the place here. And the red that I'm putting in a little bit is darker. So it's not going to, let's get some purple here. I want a little bit of that bluey purple and sky kind of color. So it will cover over the blue. Sorry, what am I saying? You know, sometimes when you paint, it's hard to talk. Okay, so the paint is going to spread out, but when I do the red for the poppies, it was going to cover over a little bit of this green, and so this green is lighter, so it's just going to show up less. And I'm just going to drop in more bits of color here and there. That's a blue-green of Viridian. And like I said, we'll dry lighter. So it's kind of fun. The color will spread out and move and blend and be soft. And I'm also going to just drop in some red, some pink and red, like, because it has these sort of blooms in the background. So it'll look like more flowers in the background. Actually, I don't think I want that pink there. I'll pick that up a little bit. There's no, like, I guess there's a bit of a white gap in the reference photo, so. And there are some white areas, so I'll drop in some water. That was quite a bit. I forgot that I was using this big thirsty brush. This big brush that holds a lot of water. So let me just, I'm going to just lift out some of those spots, kind of make these rounded, like they're like little flowers or something in the background, but they're very blurry. They look like bokeh shapes. I kind of like that a lot. So pick up some areas of paint. So dry my brush, pick it up. I don't use this technique a lot because I tend to work wet on dry and then I add in wet paint into the wet surface. Usually I have the paint and then I do like a wet on dry, then wet on wet, not just a color across like this. Need to remember to dry my brush so I can pick up some of those spots. Wipe it off. Make some lighter areas. Can even do some maybe smaller ones. It's quite a bit of water in this area. I can see it on the paper. It has a different amount of shininess than some areas. It has more, it's very shiny here, so it has more water here. And also my tape has come up a little bit, so. I was thinking too, I would use a little bit of alcohol in here to make some of those shapes. And as long as I do it while it's still pretty wet, I think they'll be pretty soft. So let me try that really quick. I keep it in this bottle and it has this needle tip on it. So it gives me really small, tiny drops. I can just, I like the shapes it makes in the watercolor. It pushes the paint away. It has a little bit different effect than dropping water. I think it's going to look nice like blooms, and if I tap it quicker, I'll get a few smaller drops. Now it's not going to completely push the paint away, but it creates a nice effect that way, and it evaporates quickly, so it won't be on the paper for very long actually. I'm going to dry this edge here. All right. Trying to decide now if I want to add in any more color. Do I like what's going on? What I can do is add some lines, some line work. I think actually I'll use the rigger for that. Today is my birthday, guys. I don't have really big plans, although my daughters have said, my husband's out of town, my daughters are like, let's do something fun. And I was like, well, I didn't really have a plan. And they're like, well, we'll do something. So I guess we're going to do something later today, which I'm happy about. I'm going to pick up this darker color. And so my stem, my reference photo, I don't want, so this is kind of far away, this flower and this flower, they're kind of far away, but I think I want them a little closer together. And so I think I'll just go ahead and put the idea of a stem in there where I want that, where I think I want it to be. And if I change my mind, that's okay, because it's going to be very, it's that wet and wet, so it's going to be very soft. That's the word I'm looking for. There are quite a few of those stems sticking up though. So I'll just do some more here and there because it's fun. Actually, now that I put that there, I think that's the wrong spot to put a flower. I think that actually what I'll do is, I have this, which is kind of like this one. I think what I'll do is I'll curve this the other way, so it's going into the painting instead of out of. This one leads you out of this photo. I've successfully leveled up. Thank you, Cheryl. You're right. That's what we talked about in our Zoom meeting the other day. I like that so much. I love leveling up. That makes me so much happier than, you know, getting older. Leveling up is better, for sure. Ah, okay, so this leads your eye out of the painting. If I were to paint it here and this way, my eye would go whoop right out of the painting. So what I'll do is just sort of flip-flop it. I'm going to paint it in this area, this direction, and that'll lead my eye back into the painting. But this is still wet right now, and my tape is coming up, so I'm sure going to have some weird edges. But look how soft this background has become. So when this was first spreading out, it had like little, like almost like tendrils, and some paints will give you sort of tendrils around the edges, but these particular Mission Gold paints don't really do that. It really softened up and spread out. Also, your paper can make a difference, so these are just some things to keep in mind when you're painting. Your results may be a little different than mine. This is still a little damp. Yeah, it's a little damp. I think I do want to like bring in more of this dark color here. I think I can do that still. It's kind of getting a little bit dry. It may cause some backgrounds if I put a whole bunch of water. So what I'll do is not get my brush too terribly wet, and I'm going to use ultramarine blue and indigo. I am using my Mission Gold palette today. If I were using my Daniel Smith, I might go for the Indian Throne. But look, that's a pretty good mix. Let's see. Yeah, look how nice dark. I would want to be a little bit more purpley, so I can even bring in some of that violet. And of course, it doesn't have to be the color of the reference photo, but I think that this is a nice kind of purpley color, and I think I will like that even better than the blue. So that's pretty nice mix there. Ooh, I like it. So this is ultramarine blue plus indigo plus red. Oh, let me double check. Let me double check that purple that I used. I used red violet. Yes, that's what I thought. Plus red violet. So in case you're wondering, you want to replicate that nice purple. Okay. Now I talked so much, it dried. And because of the blue underneath, it's still going to look more blue. It will look more blue because that blue's shining through. So just something to be aware of. I want that to be quite a bit darker, actually. And I'll do the same over here. And then because it's already starting to dry, I'm just going to use a thirsty brush and soften this. I hope you liked this photo. I really thought it was pretty, and I thought it had potential for what we were doing for this month's lessons. I'm going to bring that purple over that white. See how nice and light that is? But I'm not going to cover it up completely. So now everything's really soft and mostly dry except those corners. So now I can just start, because it's, I need to dry it a little, so please excuse the noise. Because of my weird camera setup, I cannot mute myself. So, or can I? Let me see. No, I can't. Okay, so I'll just do really pretty much as quick as I can. Ideally, you let this dry naturally, and you wouldn't use a heat tool of any kind. You would just let it dry, and you would get beautiful watercolor effects. But for the sake of time, I'm going to give this a shot of hot air. Love to challenge of the pop of red. Oh yeah, that pop of red isn't it gorgeous? I am talking, and you may not even be able to hear me because of this blow dry. I always like to dry the backs and the front. Kind of takes care of any buckling problem you might have. And again, I'm talking while this is going. Okay, I'm not super concerned about those corners which are not completely dry. Do that. So yes, Cheryl, that pop of red I thought was gorgeous in here. And look at that really dark center and these little, I like all the little, as I mentioned, all the little white areas. I think they're so fun. So let's just try this flower. Let's see if I can get that red in there. And I haven't tried this photo before, so I'll, I may mess it up a lot. It may not be. So the more I look at it, it may not be perfect. That's what I'm trying to say. But maybe I'll be fun anyway. So as I look at this a little bit longer, I noticed, at first this was blue, but now I noticed it's more purple. And then I noticed now this is a more of an orangey red than a pinky red, which poppies tend to be, but I hadn't observed that really. But the longer you work and look at a photo and you go back and forth with your painting, the more things you'll notice about it. And so that's something that I noticed. It has sort of an orangey red color. That's the wrong brush. Okay, so I'm going to get this brush. It's not too big, and I'll get this color. Just this color. This is vermilion, but I think that's too orange. Let's see. Yeah, I think that vermilion. I apologize if you can hear talking in the background. There are people in my house, and I work from home, so you may hear people sometimes. And then this is permanent red, and it's really nice and bright, and it's not really orangey at all. Well, it is actually compared to the permanent rose. So if you can see my palette, this is the permanent red and this is the permanent rose. So this is more orangey than this. It's more warm. This is more cool. So just something to know. And let's go on with this. So I want to put this flower, flip it. And because I'm working on a small painting, my flower's not going to be huge either. So I kind of want to just do like a couple of petal shapes there. Yeah, that red went over that really nicely. And then I'm going to switch to this more pinky, this permanent rose and a little bit more water and mix it with the permanent red. It's not quite as cool as just by itself, but a little bit warmer. There we go. And bring in those petals. There we go. And it has that nice, really dark center. So I'm going to use the same purple that I used before for those edges in the center. I'm going to cover it up completely though because I like how that green is showing through. I'm going to touch those petals and let that flow out a little bit. Yeah. How do you think? How do you like that? Is that okay? It's looking pretty nice, I think. Now I have some buds on here, and so I'll put a little bud. That's a big bud. Put another little bud. And then I'm going to go for some of these greens. I want it to be pretty, it's a pretty sappy green in our photo. It doesn't have to be when you paint it, but it's pretty much the way it looks right now. I want this to go out. So this flower is moving in, leading you into the painting. And then let's just add in some greenery here with some brush strokes. And some dry brush effects to add some texture. And we can also mix those greens to get more complex greens, yellow greens, blue greens, all of that. Grass, viridian. So we have a nice mix of color that way. Never bored, never boring. See how it stands out against that soft background? It's pretty cool. Let me get my rigger. Thanks, Cheryl. Are they keeping you busy today, or is it a relaxed day? It's always nice if you can get a little bit of relaxation in while you're at work. Have these going all different directions. Here. And I'm just picking up different greens every time. Because why not? And if it mixes with that red, it's going to be pretty dark. Maybe even strengthen that a little there. That stem. Nice. I like it. I'm going to drop some water drops on there. Steady, not too busy. That's not so bad. Then the time goes by pretty well that way, huh? Everywhere this is wet in these leafy areas, it's going to spread out and it's going to be very defined everywhere it's dry. All right. Well, I don't have any loose and sketchy bits yet, do I? So let's try that. I'm just going to bring in some marks. Now this is pretty, everything's dry except these petals. Just want to add that sketchy bit there. Mostly I think a little bit into these buds on stems and some leaves. Probably not going to add a lot of sketchy bits. That's cool. That's looking pretty nice. There's no metallic in here. We can't live without that, can we? Well, you might be able to, but I think I can't. I needs it. Gonna just get this paint moving. And I'll even put some little squiggly lines because I love those. They're not really in the photo right now. I'm just sort of taking creative license and doing whatever I want. And now you know what else I want? I want a little bit of red splatter. Bet you're surprised by that. You love the metallic, Cheryl. You surprised by the splatter? Bet you're not. Yeah. All right. I'm kind of liking the way this looks. I like, maybe I'll strengthen this one a little bit and add a stem. Maybe I'll add the stem with the pencil. Kind of goes off in the background and a little bit of sketchiness. I don't know how much like a poppy these look, but it's pretty fun to paint them. All right, let's see. A little bit of oranginess there. And I'll go ahead and bring this green because I feel like this. Now I've kind of brought this flower to the front. So this is a little different take on the loose and sketchy, but I think it looks pretty nice. I think that, you know, maybe once all this dries, I may come back in with like some white and add a little bits of touches of white and that sort of thing, maybe on the petals, that kind of thing, just some little highlights. They're pretty dark. I could actually, I'm thinking about that vermilion, and I think if I put like a watery mix of the vermilion, like right around kind of the edge of the petals, there. It's going to add some light to it. Not too much water there. I could always add in like little dots and all the kind of things. So, all right. Okay, my friends, I'm going to call this done for now. I hope that you'll try the Paint This challenge, and I'll see you tomorrow in our show and share. I'm excited about that. And we're going to have some fun and share our work. And if you don't have time to do the Paint This challenge, you know, if you have something else to bring, that's perfectly fine. Just bring something you're working on, and we'll share, talk, and support each other. And it's really a lot of fun, and we really get to know each other that way. So, and thank you for being here, Cheryl, and others who are watching. And thank you for watching the replay. I'll see you very soon. Bye.